Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Vital MX post-race show. The 15th round of Monster Energy AMA Supercross has been and gone, that being Pittsburgh, the first time that we have hit that city since 1983, and it certainly delivered countless narratives. Perhaps not the most exciting in some regards, but in others, it certainly set up an exciting title fight, and we'll get to all of that on this episode of the Vital MX post-race show. But first of all, it's been a tough couple of weeks for the sport worldwide, and I felt it was only right for us to acknowledge the loss in Australia's Pro MX series today. Joel Evans, a very popular racer down under, well known for not only his riding and results, but also his social media presence. I believe he raced in Thailand somewhat recently. He lost his life at the third round, and as I mentioned, tough couple of weeks for the sport. A tough blow for the industry worldwide. I know the Australian community is hurting right now, so I just wanted to acknowledge that, send our condolences to all close to him. As I said, I know a lot of people were, and I felt it was only right to get that in at the very, very beginning. Of course, I would also like to thank Yamaha Motor USA, Decal Works, Yoshimura, MotorX and Fox Racing for their support of this podcast. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, as per usual, and we are back to your regularly scheduled programming. After a one-week hiatus, we finally got Max Anstey to shut up. Although the recording stopped, he's been talking for a week. Finally, he has left the chat room, as it were, and we've been able to resume service with the Pittsburgh podcast, joined by Michael Lindsay. Hello and welcome back.
Hello. Yeah, the comments on the Anstey pod were quite entertaining. I thought the most interesting thing of all is me and you love to joke about every week. One of us we both get hate for different reasons. I didn't see a single piece of hate for you. Everybody was just talking about Max on this show.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the feedback is to this episode now. I feel maybe Max is some sort of human shield for us mere mortals.
To your comment, though, yes, very, very sad Joel Evans is passing. To your point, the last week's been tough. I'm very close friends with Jerry, and I've had this conversation with him, and things can always be worse. My hearts and thoughts out to Joel Evans and his family. It's been a very tough time in our little sport here, man.
Without doubt. It almost doesn't feel right to be doing this podcast and talking about racing as per usual, but that is what we're hired to do. So
that's what we do.
I guess this podcast must go on, and the 450 title fight must go on as well. Of course, there are 2 rounds left on the calendar, but the dream scenario that I think all of us as a collective industry were Chase Sexton fans since Foxborough, because we all wanted a winner-takes-all scenario in Salt Lake City, and it could still happen, of course, but Cooper Webb broke the streak, rebounded after a tough loss in East Rutherford, did exactly what he needed to do, executed after a hard week of work at the Star Racing facility, and has put himself now in an extremely comfortable position in the 450 title fight. 12 points up, 2 rounds remaining. Quite simply, as long as my math is correct, which it often isn't, if Chase goes 1-1 and Webb goes 3-4, then they would tie and Chase would win. So technically, Webb just needs to go 3-3, I believe. Which, in all honesty, yes, we still have a lot of former 250 champions in the field, and yes, we have factory riders, and yes, AP and J. Cooper riding brilliantly. But I honestly believe that Cooper Webb could crash and finish second, and if the crash for some reason takes a little while for him to recover from, he will finish third. I cannot even fathom a scenario where Cooper Webb finishes fourth. So it's not over, but it certainly feels like the bubble was burst.
It did very much, because poor on me. Like, I've been thinking about it all week. It sounds so stupid to miss the math like this, or just not think it through till you see it on paper, or really have to do the math. But it's it's like, okay, if this whole thing's been about Chase wins every week, pulls 3 points in, and I was like, okay, yeah, if at any point in this Webb gets a win, it puts him in a second place situation. Well, this deep, down with 2 to go, and the 3-point swing is different, because it's not just Coop gaining 3 points. Of course, it's Chase not gaining 3 points. That margin gets big. So yeah, he can run 3-3 the last 2 rounds and take it. And like you said, especially with the the level that Jacob's performing at, man, even if something really weird happens for Webb, if he's in, if he has to crawl his way back to the field and he gets to a fourth, sounds pretty likely that Jacob would be one of the two guys, one of those guys ahead of him and can help out. Like, it goes back to it, man. I was thinking about this, like watching, we'll get into the 250 class. It's something like there's been so many, little bike champ, the 250 champs our sport into the 450 class, man. You have to be clutch, to put it simply, and that was such a clutch performance by Webb when everything is weighing against him to make it happen. And when you get to the premier class, man, sometimes you just when everything's against you, you have to perform. And I think especially after the defeat in East Rutherford and how impressive Chase was there for Coop to basically put on a perfect race while being. It'd be one thing for him to come out and win that race if Chase had, a start where Chase had stalked him down halfway through the race and was really pressuring him, but to really have him there the whole race and the majority of the race and make it happen. We all talk about Chase's amazing speed, amazing talent, and everything else, but God, Coop just knows how to get it done when it really, really needs to happen.
This is, I think this is telling and speaks to just how good these great riders are. In the 450 main event, from lap 2 to lap 16, Cooper Webb did not leave either faster or slower the 48-second range. So he was just clocking off lap after lap after lap. And when I went to the Baker's factory the week before East Rutherford, Chase did a main event there. And similarly, I was tracking his lap times each lap, and from memory, I believe he was within 6/10, the entire main event. His lap times didn't move out of that window. And after he asked me what I thought, and I was just like, I know this happens a lot, that you riders do this, but that in itself is more mind-blowing to me than any jump, any quad, any single lap time. The fact that you can put these laps together like clockwork is incredible to me. And speaking of the Pittsburgh main event, in that same period, Chase did lap 2 to lap 19 with just one lap outside of the 48-second range, that being lap 12, which I'm guessing would have been when he jumped off track in the whoops. So, that perfectly illustrates the picture that this wasn't Cooper Webb dominating, this wasn't Chase Sexton being the fastest rider and just running out of time. This was two riders who, for the most part, were just on perfect form, and it was a matter of who blinked first.
It gives me vibes of, and I think that's something, like when I think back eras, that's the kind of races we would see with like a Stu and a Ricky, of course, like just two guys at the absolute top of the sport, top of their game, and somehow replicating it every single lap. And that was a technical track, like that one rhythm lane where they're going from 3 to 5s over and over, not clipping. The 450s compared to the 250s can get away with clipping and still jumping a little more, but there's so many on that track. You look at everybody else, there were so many situations to make a mistake that should put you a 1 second out of your normal lap time range. So again, amazing that the two of them basically, it sucks, like I said, I mean, anything can happen, but if that ends up being the deciding race of this championship, in a sense, kind of where it ended, I think me and you have had our conversations about, other races we kind of see as a deciding factor, but if that's kind of where it ended, not a lot of back and forth, but an amazing performance between the two, if that's kind of where we say the season, wrapped itself up.
It's well documented that Webb wasn't happy after East Rutherford, and in talking to various people, I know that 8 a.m. Monday he went to work hard on his weaknesses, one of those being the whoops. A shock change, which he mentioned in the post-race press conference, some other little tweaks here and there to improve his game, and he was notably better in the whoops. But if Chase had kept skimming, I think that could have been his ticket to the main event. And I know in the press conference he mentioned that it seemed like the risky option, and it also exerted a lot of energy. The energy thing I don't quite get, because without being too, I don't know what you'd say, without being too positive on Chase Sexton, I think worldwide, we all know
the fittest guy.
Energy is not an issue for Chase Sexton. So I'm disregarding that immediately. And I wonder, it's interesting for me that he weighed up the risk. And I almost wonder, is if this was Philly, if that risk wouldn't have entered his mind as much. Because maybe now that he's gained those points, he too started to think, championship. Whereas Philly and then East Rutherford to an extent was more like, fuck it, let's just do this.
And it sucks to say, like, going back to it, this is part of where, again, I just think Webb is, we talk about how amazing he is mentally knowing what's going on, whether it's race to race, championship. You listen to him talk about the mud race and planning out what he was going to do. And this isn't too much a negative Chase, but that mindset of Chase, if he was in championship mode there, not to back on, but it goes back to like Arlington. It's like, man, those are different times of the year to be in that mindset. Like, I'm all in for Chase send it at this moment, because that's really all that was left for him. Like, each race now it is just win each race. Like, screw the championship. You're in a win everything scenario to win out. And if that was his, because I thought the same thing. They were talking about the broadcast, like, oh, the skim line's gone away. The skim line's gone away. We're past the halfway point in the race, and I'm watching Ferrandis skim the whoops and kill people. And Dylan, I don't take as a particular, kind of of that top 10 tier. He's kind of a mid-ish guy to me in the whoops, and was just killing it, skimming it. And I'm like, this should be Chase every lap, because then Chase would at least have a vantage point on Webb. And I think that was the tough part about that track. Like, yes, Chase was really good in the switchback section, but he needed something, because Webb was really going toe-to-toe with him sector to sector. I felt like he needed something to stand out to have as a weapon to make the move.
Well, in the same
and that would have played into that split section he was really good in afterwards.
Yeah, in the split section, I feel like you could tell that Chase was eyeing up the inside as potentially a passing opportunity. But realistically, there weren't many places to make a pass on that track. So I feel like his greatest shot would have been skimming past Webb also. So not only did he need to skim all main event to catch Webb, I also feel like it was his only chance to realistically make a pass if such a situation arose.
Yeah. And I know it's hard to go back to something, but even, and again, maybe he just didn't feel confident in it, and it is what it is. But yeah, it's one of those ones where, like, okay, even if you had to go jump line for half the race to kind of manage it, the point where he got close before he kind of got messed up lappers, it may have been a send it moment, but it's like, God, probably should have gone back to skim for at least 2 or 3 laps and see if you could put it together. Because he just needed somewhere where he had enough momentum to. So that track, you were going, other than the split section, anywhere else is going to pretty much need you to jump to the inside of somebody. So you need somewhere to gain momentum.
A lot of riders commented on the fact that the whoops were built differently. The spacing, they were further apart than normal. And as far as I've managed to work out, those assumptions are correct. So maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe that made the skimming more. Maybe it didn't actually harm the execution of skimming, but it made the optics of committing to that a little hairier. It just felt and looked different, so it's not as normal as just hitting the automatic skim the whoops button.
And I think the tough one for those guys is, even if the skim's really fast skimming, and you saw it happen a few times, is even if the skim was really fast, if you didn't execute the last 2 really well, the 450s more, the 450s were a little safer in this regard than the 250s, but it could cost you the 3 on. Even if the skim was fast, if you were too unsettled on the last 1 or 2 and it like kicked you out into the face that, it was a little more difficult to get the 3 on. You were kind of playing with fire of the bike being unloaded and then having to last minute pressure the rear end into the face of that 3 on, which could be a little disastrous if you overload it and get that endo character.
Weird observation. It was only 2 weeks, but it did strike me as quite cool that in both East Rutherford and Pittsburgh, when it was game time, Coop and Chase, who have both been hit and miss with their starts this year, Chase more so, but those 2 rounds they both executed just all across the board. There was execution, and it's just cool.
Again, that's where I come back to it. If this is, depending on what happens the next 2 weeks, if we look back on this as the finale, would I've loved a race with some more back and forth and pressure? Yes, but I don't think you could ask anything more of those 2 to put on a true show of skill.
The best way. Okay, let me put it this way. Of course, we all knew that Chase winning 5 in a row was going to be some tall order.
Do you feel like we romanticized it a little bit, made it a little more?
I don't know, because now, does it not seem very, very realistic that he's going to win 4 out of 5? Because Coop's going to now be playing it safer. Yeah. So I think we are probably going to end up just being 1 short. Of course, the circumstances are quite different now, but the stat sheet will say that, is in my humble opinion. But the tension was there in recent weeks, and it was there in that entire Pittsburgh main event because we all knew what was on the line. And the best way to describe the emotional roller coaster of the last 3 weeks, it was essentially like what would you call it? What's it called? Doing a Jack in the Box. Do 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 do. Like you didn't know when it was going to pop, and it was just like it's coming. Like maybe it's not going to pop until Salt Lake, maybe, and then there it went in Pittsburgh. So but as I said, anything can happen. I struggle to see a pathway where Webb loses this without him just. I don't even know what would have to happen.
Yeah.
But stranger things have happened. Just look at 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, between the Tomac and Webb. Are you talking about when we lost Tomac and Webb both right at the end of the season? Yeah. Like I said, anything can happen, but this truly is, even though the situation is similar, this went from Chase's title to just Chase. Like I said, he was in the full driver's seat of how to operate this, even though Webb had the gap. Webb didn't have momentum on his side. Chase had the complete, just like, F it, win every race, who gives a crap? And he was in the driver's seat to chase him down. Coop is 100% in the driver's seat in this. It's his championship to control and win now through the end. It is so within a reasonable grasp for him.
The final thing I wanted to say on Webb, and I guess Chase, because this has basically been a tandem conversation, is after the main event, he looked spent. He was sat on the side of the podium. Yeah. Visibly, it had taken a lot of out of him. I think it was also a sense of elation, realization. I think he, in that moment, knew that the job, okay, I now have one hand on the trophy. I've obviously you're not celebrating at that point, but I think in his mind, it was an emotional release of like, okay, I've done what I need to do now. Now I just need to not fuck this up.
Yeah, I would want to ask him, like, outside of championship winning nights, I would think that has got to go down as like one of the most gratifying, like self-gratifying wins. Like, so much went into that. And what it means, like I said, it's not the title winning night, but when it gets to Salt Lake, and if he takes this thing, like, it really comes back to that performance. This seems like too early of a conversation. I'll bring up a Salt Lake. I was going to say the defining races of the season, but we'll do that at Salt Lake. Question for you. Looking at each rider's emotion afterwards, of course, Chase goes from the highest, like one of the highest of highs last week, and just his overall attitude after dominating the field, how excited he was, happy with everything. That wasn't the crushingness of what was Arlington, but it's still, just the down emotion. We've talked about a lot. There's still the ongoing conversation about his contract situation. Does that in any shape or form in your mind affect a decision? Like, does it close a chapter? Does it change anything at all to you?
I think it
to see that.
I think it could do. I think it potentially opens. I don't know. You would think that winning, again, I guess it's too early to say, because if he wins a championship or not, that is still on the table. Of course, as we've said, the chances have now shrunk considerably, but let's not crown Webb. As Dungy said in 2017, there is no crown. There is no crown.
I remember that.
There is no crown.
That press conference.
There is no crown. But let's crown our partners at Yamaha Motor USA as Pittsburgh winners and congratulate them on another superb night in Monster Energy AMA Supercross. Of course, Yamaha Motor USA, well documented with their success and all that they are doing in this series, and that's just going to continue this weekend in Denver at altitude when power is at its most necessary. You can bet that Hayden Deegan and Cole Davies will be powering their way to whole shots and most likely a win from one of those two. But which one? Nobody knows. That just speaks to the stable that Yamaha have, and that's because everyone wants to be partnered with Yamaha Motor USA, including us. So thank you to them for their support of this podcast. As I said, we kind of talked about Webb and Chase in tandem. I don't know if I have anything on Chase specifically to tackle before we move on. I just think skimming the whoops, it was quite important. And also, tough to say, if they are flipped and Chase starts in front of Webb, different result? I think so, maybe.
Yeah, it's just again, when you look at those lap times, I think Webb would be in the same situation. Just it would be so tough to pass Chase because I think they went so toe to toe. Sector times, lap time wise, the fact that other than Chase's mistake in the whoop, like they were so mistake free, there wasn't. I hate to say, with especially the 5 minutes to go, I kind of had that gut wrenching feeling of like they are both just nailing their marks too perfect. When is it going to go sideways for one of these two? I was really hoping we weren't going to have, a catastrophic end to the race. But that also creeped into my mind just because it almost seemed, I'm like, it is mind-blowing that they were just replicating everything that closely.
Yeah, I was trying to, in preparation for this podcast, I was trying to remember earlier, because full disclosure, I exclusively paid attention to the Webb and Chase battle. I was trying to remember a single mistake that I saw Webb make, like anything from just lighting up the rear the tiniest bit. And honestly, maybe my memory's failing me. I cannot recall a single moment where I was like, oh, there was a couple where he would follow a back marker into the split section, and I was like, this could be something, but it wasn't. But there was no moment where it was like, Webb. But I guess in the same breath, maybe that is also to the credit of Chase, because Chase did close him in at points. So Chase also rode great. It was one of those races similar to Seattle, where I'm just like, great work, boys. What an incredible ride from you both. Great racing. There had to be a winner and there had to be a loser. Good job, everyone.
The one last thing I'll say is, like, these types of races and situations, again, it's part of Coop's DNA and the way we talk about his mental strength is, God, there's one hand where it's like, it'd be so nice to be on the caliber like Chase's, when Chase just has, like last week, in those dominant rides. Very, very dominant. Like, you look at, when you think of, Chase or some of Eli's wins or how Jet's been, like, they can pull out gaps when they basically pull shot different stuff. Webb manages a race, but man, to ride under that kind of pressure like Webb does, because they mentioned, Marcus, like how small some of Webb's victory margins are, the positions he puts himself into to make it happen. That guy's got to be taking years off his life with stress by now.
I wonder. I think in those situations, you would often rather be the follower than the leader, just to see what lines are quicker, see where you can make time.
Yeah, but I think I would have rather. That's the position Webb's been in a lot. Yeah,
but I think I would have rather led in that race than be behind, just purely because I think you would have been in that position, and after a couple of laps would have been like, okay, I don't really know what to do with this.
Well, I said, I think it's easier to be the follower when you have a trump card, a section that you are putting together at a noticeably better rate. And again, like we all kind of felt, I think Chase's split section was really good. But without the skim, like it's hard to be the following guy, because you can have one really good section, and then if you're kind of yo-yoing and you see where you're losing, if it's small stuff, you can work on that without them, 100% knowing what you have in the bag. But when, again, they're both just riding that perfect, and you can make fix the minor sections like Chase was and pull in the gap, but then you get to him and you're like, something has to happen here. I don't have anything in the bag that is better than what he's got right now, really. Like, I've cleaned up the mistakes. I can catch him, but what do I do?
Finally, again in true Cooper Webb fashion, there were 8 sectors on the track, and Cooper Webb was not fastest in any of them, which sounds like a diss, but it's actually a massive to his credit, because that just points to his efficiency. And then also, actually, interesting, Chase was only the fastest in one of the sectors. So despite their greatness, between them, they can account for one sector, and it was the split section where Chase was the fastest. Because as we alluded to, the Whoops, Sector 2, Roxon had the fastest time, and Ferrandis had the second fastest time, the two skimmers. Sexton had the third fastest time, early in the race that came, so he would have been skimming. And Wilson had the 4th fastest time on the second lap. I would feel comfortable presuming that he too skimmed. Yeah. Malcolm had the 5th fastest time. Again, didn't see this particular lap, but feel comfortable presuming he's skimming. So
again, that goes back to seeing Ferrandis skim, and it's great to say, hey, Ferrandis had the second fastest lap in the Whoop by skimming. That doesn't scream to me, Dylan's amazing in the Whoops. Well, he's pretty good, but it comes down to him committing to that during the race.
I don't know if we need to reassess that analysis, because last week, baffling to me, Max was watching it from TV, obviously, and one of the poignant observations he really wanted to get across, like he actually jumped in and shut me up because he had to talk about this, was that Ferrandis was just blowing his mind in the Whoops. And then again this week. So, I mean, we know he loves his bike, we know he loves Factory Connection, maybe it's that combined. I don't know. I even made a point to interview Ferrandis after the race just purely to get to the bottom of this, and he didn't really have much to say other than he couldn't understand. He actually said Chase Sexton is the best rider in the world at skimming whoops, which I felt was... I didn't know we were all on that page, but okay.
Dylan is.
And he said, like, I don't understand why Chase wouldn't skim the whole time. It wasn't that hard. He was fully just... There was no reason for his skimming. I tried to get to the bottom of it. He was just like, it wasn't hard. I don't know why there was a reason for people to back out of that. But 2 weeks in a row.
Maybe this even goes back. God, we're getting just hung up on the Chase and the web comment, but I'll bring it up. Did we ever really, like, okay, take Chase's heat race. I get it that J. Coop had great pace, but Chase just kind of letting it go. Again, did we maybe just get a little bit of a mentality switch in the wrong direction? Like we went from... just went out when it all cost to we had a safer night and it just didn't work.
I don't know, because Webb also lost his heat race. So
but Chase's was more,
Yeah, that was
the weird part is J-Coop passing
loss.
in them and immediately, again, TV, I'm only seeing part of it, like Chase immediately was like 8 seconds off. I didn't know if there was a big... I know because of where J-Coop made the move, he basically had to double that whole rhythm lane, but I didn't think that was, enough to build that kind of a gap, so I wasn't sure if there was further mistakes or, I just kind of got comfortable and said, save it for the main.
Well, I can't say this with certainty, but from what I hear, they did change the shock between the heat and the main, so maybe that's it.
Yeah.
But what a perfect segue into J-Coop, who was phenomenally fast in the heat race. And he even said to me after the race that Chase stopped him at some point to say that his corner speed in the heat race absolutely blew Chase's mind, which is interesting because talking to AP, I said to AP, where did J-Coop find that speed in the heat race? And he put it exclusively down to the 2-3-4 line in the whoops. And J-Coop kind of debunked that quite quickly and was like, no, I was making up a lot of time in the corners. It was all corner speed. And then even reaffirmed his point by clarifying what Chase said to him.
J-Coop was super impressive coming out of the split into that left-hander. Like, if anybody especially went... Like, he could kind of make it work anywhere he wanted because of how he was coming into the left-hander after the split lane. Whether he came out onto that straight from the inside or the outside, everybody seemed to really struggle to, like, kind of think to get settled into that rut that kind of appeared mid-corner. Like, he would come from the outside, and where a lot of guys would slingshot in and then get scared, he would just send it in and manage to get the bike settled and in there. Like, his entrance speed there was insane. Like, he would come from far enough back, they're like, there's no way he's going to get the move done.
I was trying to hustle.
Dive in.
Oh, sorry, you cut out.
I was just saying dive in, yeah.
I was trying to hustle after the race, and I was kind of going along with J-Coop, and I had 2 questions in mind, and I didn't know which one to end with. Ultimately, I went with 2026, but what I didn't ask him, which was also on my list, was I do feel like now we've had a couple of examples, East Rutherford being one, and there's another one more recently, where J-Coop has been phenomenal in the heat race, the best rider in 450s, and that isn't translating to the main event. And I don't know what that is. And even in the interview, J-Coop was very much like, yeah, Coop and Chase are going for a championship. There's no way I can run with them. I had nothing for them. And I kind of want to go, but
you blew Chase's door off.
The heat race. Like, he was like, no. He was very much just like, yeah, what can I do? They're going for a championship. They're hauling. And it's like, but sir, qualifying, the heat race, all of this. There's so much evidence.
And I think I don't think this is the most obvious thing to say, and I don't think it's that far off to just be like, it's just a bit of belief. We've seen it race after race. I've said it. You look at guys other than a Webb or a Chase. In the heat race, he did it, but I felt like at a lot of races this season, he would battle a Plessinger, a Ferrandis, any of those guys so much harder, and he would send it in deep and just make it happen. Where he gets around Chase and Webb and kind of just a little bit just like takes a step back. Whether it's some part of self-belief to battle with them. Hopefully, those heat race moments, things like that, start to click with him more like, no, this is completely doable, because the heat race was I feel like, it's one race, but man, the flashes in that were big. And that's why me and you've been talking about this for, going on our second year on this pod. You can mention what he said in his interview. I know he's either close or basically does have his extension done now, a star, but just any 450 team we've yelled at, like, somebody commit to this guy long term. Like, there's something here.
Yeah, J-Coop had the fastest lap of the race as well in the main event, which actually just paints more
Sure, yeah.
uncertainty.
How am I supposed to run with them?
Yeah.
Well, you were faster than them for a lap.
And
Or there.
not even by a little bit either. He was 3/10 quicker than Chase's fastest time and 4/10 quicker than Coop's fastest time. So, yeah, work that out. Similarly, I feel like we're in a bit of the same position with AP, where he's shown a lot of flashes and speed recently in heat races and qualifying and whatnot, and then in the main it's just missing for whatever reason. But I think that comes down to AP now maybe wanting it so much that expectations have changed, pressure has changed on the starting line. It's no longer like, yeehaw, let's see what we can do. It's, fuck me, this is go time, let me see if I can win this. And maybe that process of adjusting to that mentality at the start of a race is taking hold a little bit. That's my assumption, at least.
Let me ask you one more here, because it's not, we're now out of the situation of where Chase is in the win out scenario and Webb doesn't need to win. J. Coop's moment, last two races. Do we see a race win? What's our percentage chance here?
I'm going to say no, because I do think Chase comes out of the next two. Pressure's almost off again a little bit, and I think Chase just kind of romps, and that's that. When we've spoken at length about how everyone expects Chase to be the best on the hard pack of Denver and Salt Lake. But in contrast, I do think that J. Coop needs to win, because it's not going to get easier at the start of 2026. So I feel like it would be very valuable for him to lock one down now. Interesting though, he did mention on Friday, talking to him, that he's kind of struggling for, what would you say, motivation at the moment, because he hasn't missed a race since the start of 23 outdoors. I think the grind is maybe taking hold a little bit. So he kind of mentioned that he's struggling with a little bit of motivation. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's kind of what he said.
Which a win could be huge for that. Like I said, two parts of it. Get it done before we go back to the stack field at A1 next year, and you're part of the cannon fodder of anywhere from third to seventh when it's really, really stacked. But two, a win could give all that motivation in the world of, this has all been worth it. This has all been worth it. And if I keep grinding, here it is.
Similarly, Dylan Ferrandis, who has been great the last 2 weeks, and you could argue that we should be having a conversation about Dylan potentially getting a podium here at the last two rounds. Yeah. Similar to J. Coop, I don't think we should have that conversation, because he's very quick to tell everyone that he is very tired, has no energy, this is a way too long season, and basically he has nothing to give, which is also why he went from 5th to 7th in the main event. He said he was tired, there's nothing going on other than this season has been long, and he's kind of over it.
That worries me, because it was kind of quiet last year and he waited till pretty late in outdoors to tell anyone, but he I don't know if it was Epstein-Barr or what it is, but he got pretty badly sick last year, where I remember one of the races late outdoors when he faded. I remember hearing him basically say he hadn't ridden during the week for like over 2 months because he was so ruined. And he was battling some health issues. So I don't like hearing that.
Yeah, and I said to him,
we don't need a repeat.
I said to him, okay, so do you take some focus off of Supercross now and maybe just like back it down a little bit through the last two rounds to save yourself, build something for outdoors? And he's like, no. How am I meant to do that? We're busy all the time. We're racing. We're testing. I'm not gonna be able to make myself better for outdoors. And I'm just like, okay, cool, Dylan. Good luck. Enjoy yourself. So I don't know. I have nothing else to offer you at this point. Yeah. Good luck. Have a good time.
End of career Dylan would be an interesting one, because he had such a hot streak for a couple years to talk to him about grind. Just like one of those guys, like, what was your workload like during those couple of years making the transition to 450? Like, just how that all work out. It'd be an interesting one to talk to about that at the end of when his career's all settled out.
How about Ken Roxon's heat race win in Fox Racing? Bold, untamed, and pushing the boundaries of aesthetic style and design. Fox Racing's new Spring MX graphics, launching with Hello Future, disrupt the status quo and make no apologies for the interruption. Comprised of a head-to-toe kit, plus a slew of head-turnings men's and women's lifestyle pieces, its spirited graphic combined with dialed-in fit, comfort and construction sends a message loud, clear and confidently. The future belongs to those brave enough to answer the call. Thank you to Fox Racing for their support of this podcast. Quite interesting to have 7, 8, 9, 10 as Dylan, Joey, Shane and Dean. All Honda riders, all with varying support, all with a point to prove because Dylan wanted Dean's bike and Joey and Shane were arguably in that conversation somewhat as well. So just interesting to see those four, cross the line in order. Colt Nichols was happier to a degree, had a better start, started in the top 10 for the first time in a long time and just said he needs to relearn that position, that pace. Yeah, I think that's all we've got for 450s. How about this? Let me ask you this quickly, and then we'll move on. It does seem that as of right now, Christian Craig has a Supercross-only deal, although to my knowledge, he is trying to figure out a way to extend this into outdoors, and I do think that he races outdoors in some form, some way. But, in your opinion, before we move on to 250s, if Christian Craig is Supercross-only, how does that change your viewpoint of what he's doing in Supercross? Because I've kind of been of the opinion that, well, he's building for outdoors. Outdoors will be a fresh start, and he's good outdoors, and, this is all just stocking time for that. Whereas actually, in contrast, maybe it isn't, and this is actually it. Of course, he has a 2-year deal as well, so that's not a concern.
I mean, that was the shocker of East Rutherford on Friday, because I remember texting out when I left their rig over there, because I'd heard somebody say that, and I'm like, no way. Walked over and asked, they're like, yeah, it's Supercross only deal. I'm like, how did we miss this? Because the PR, of course, didn't say that. It said it was a 2-year deal. But yeah, that's what his deal is, and it's basic from what I told. It's always been that. It's SX only. I was told, yes, of course, he's the first built-in fill-in the moment anything happens to anybody on the 450 team. But you think of, J. Coop, Webb, Tomac Outdoors should be pretty solid, at least for most of the season. Something freaky happens. None of them should be out. I made a joke about, well, if he's built-in filling, could you put him on 250? And said person looked at me and goes, do you know how many freaking 250 riders we have? We don't need a fill-in for a long time. I don't think it ends up happening. I personally don't. I think until somebody actually falls down in the 450 group, I think he is sitting for the summer. Whether he wants to try or not, I don't know if it's really a question of that. Because then he would be, from what I'm told, is they go back to 3 450s under the factory truck. He's back on the 250 setup. They just have so much in that truck going on for 250s and pro motocross because they have so many riders returning. I think they only have... Is Pierce the only rider that won't make the beginning outdoor? He won't race the rest of this year, but I think Pierce is the only 250 guy that won't be back.
Yeah, I don't know Bennick's situation with that concussion.
Yeah, that was the one they were kind of in, not sure on Bennick. So, I mean, without Bennick, do we have 5 or 6 to start the season for 250s?
17. I don't know. Throw a number out there. You mentioned Tomac there. There was some rumblings early on that he would return for the end of Supercross. To my knowledge, that isn't happening. And from talking to people, I believe he's riding outdoors at the moment. He's kind of full gung-ho with that. But I think he's dealing with more pain in his leg than he anticipated at this stage. I don't think it's exactly all is well and recovered and here we go. I think it's a little bit troublesome still. So I'm interested to see what Eli we get in Pro Motocross. But of course, that is a month or so away. So we don't need to discuss that right now. On to 250s. Do you want to say something?
No, the only thing I was going to say is I didn't answer your question on the Craig thing. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. It is a weird one because he has performed more on a 450 outdoors than Supercross. I know he had a tough go, and this is armchair quarterback. It kind of comes back to something you said before. Especially if he knew Supercross only was his deal, it makes me more surprised they didn't come back earlier in the season. I understand he was trying to ramp up and get ready. I'm surprised we didn't come back and race earlier.
Yeah, a lot of confusion, I would argue. 250 SX East. First of all, congratulations to our title sponsor, Decal Works, on another victory, this time in 250 SX East with Tom Vial, his first of the season. Of course, Decal Works now have completed the Red Bull KTM factory racing set as they have won with Chase Sexton, Aaron Plessinger and Julian Beaumer as well already this year. And speaking of completing the set, why don't you get yourself a set of Decal Works graphics by heading to decalmx.com, checking out all of the customizable options and what they have for you, the same quality design and, I need a third word, quality design and brilliance that Chase Sexton uses on his motorcycle, you can have exactly the same. And what a perfect segue into another sponsored segment, the Motorex Tom Vial Sympathy Corner. Motorex, known for high-quality engine oils, also has an entire line of clean, care and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance made easy with race-proven Motorex clean, care and lube products.
Question, is it sympathy or we apology?
No, I've changed it. We're sympathy now.
We're a sympathy corner. Okay, I thought it varied depending on the situation.
We're exclusively sympathy because I think that kind of covers it all. So it's not enough that we all just absolutely shit on Tom at the start of the season and wrote him off. It's not enough. We all also decided with 2 rounds to go to just retrace our steps and shit on him once more and just rule him out and go, nope, not going to happen. We literally... Wait.
When did we say it was like 100% done? We said
no,
was out
come
last
on.
round.
We're
still...
No.
I mean, we're definitely RJ and Seth, but
yes.
we still had a chance.
No, but I'm talking for the industry. He was 7 points down. Podcasts, private conversations, text messages, no one wanted to entertain the prospect of Tom Vial winning this championship. So not only did the industry as a collective knock him down at the start of the season, we also went back and just kicked him once more, pre-Pittsburgh, and here he is with a red plate, which, I mean, no one would have bet on Tom Vial being in sole possession of a red plate leaving Pittsburgh, but there's 250SX East for you. Great ride. You could tell he wanted that one. We know how much of a win, or the lack of a win, has been playing on his mind. Great to see him execute in the closing stages. A tricky whoop section, which he managed and did the best that he could with, the 5th fastest sector time there. I still don't know if he wins this championship. Something I forgot about, but a lot of people have started to mention, is he wasn't great in Salt Lake last year. He barely made the main event from memory out of the heat race. But in contrast, someone said to me today, in his MX2 days, Tom Vial was not good in Turkey, but he entered that round basically tied on points for the championship, the finale, and got it done there as well. So maybe Tom Vial, of course, far and away the most championship experience in this class. He has 3 major championships to RJ's 1. Maybe that really does mean something come Salt Lake City. But yeah, no one saw Tom Vial leaving with a red plate.
So I got one for you. Back to comments about clutch performance. You got to give Tom a massive chance going in his title, just because the fact two MX2 World Championships, the title last year. The moment arises, a guy like this ends up in this situation by performing when, it truly matters. So yeah, maybe Salt Lake doesn't favor him. I want to say, and again, I have been, since the first round this year, I've been beating the Seth drum. I haven't seen the best of him. Every time we've done the percentages, I always say afterwards, I don't have a reason for this, but I think Seth can do it. I have better faith in Seth of the trio. Tom has all the proof in the world he can perform when the pressure's on. I know RJ has a title. However, this last weekend still just kind of put me in this situation of RJ still RJ's. Do you give Seth a better clutch performance chance than RJ? I'm so concerned that RJ, and you know what, it's amazing, as bad as his wrist is, that he's in this and performing how he is, but you know what I mean?
I mean, realistically, I've kind of followed this trend for a while now. 1 race to go, I don't know. Just, it's going to be a crapshoot.
33.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the start and whatever the hell happens after that. There's really no way to make an educated guess. I will say that my overarching theme with this now is RJ's really... quite fortunate to still be in this to the degree that he is. Between the disc at round 1, the 15th at the Foxborough Mudder, dropping 2 points for no reason this weekend, the wrist, I'm definitely missing something else in there that I'm forgetting. The fact that I feel like even if you said this to RJ, he would say it quite honestly. The fact that he is just 3 points out of the red plate with 1 round to go and essentially has his own destiny in his hands is incredible. because there's no reason why he should be in this position based on the track record of what's happened so far. He's had a messy season, and somehow it's all worked out. Although, actually, worth saying as well, technically, and you can play this game with all of them, but technically, Tom Vial should be heading into the last round with a very comfortable cushion had the Foxborough Mudder not reared its ugly head. And of course, there was a little bit of controversy about whether that 22nd place was actually legit. So, technically, Tom Vial should actually be very much in command of this thing.
Yeah. What I go back to is a comment I make all the time about 250, and the fact we've had this many winners still brings this true to me. 250 regional racing, nobody wants to win these titles. These guys cannot stay. Nobody in this group can put it together week in after week, and it's a shorter championship. And, you know, for guys like Seth, it's his first run on tile, but like with the experience of Tom, the experience of RJ, yeah, everybody in this championship conversation, even Chance was there a couple weeks ago. I hate to say this is so weird, but one thing that pops in my head is you're all lucky nobody actually wants to win this thing bad enough that you all can keep rebounding and getting back into this championship. Very different than Wes, where it's been a much more consistent conversation with Hayden. A little bit early in the season, but then kind of opened up. Now it's just like this thing, anything can happen. Who's fourth in points? Is it still Chance?
No, it's not. It's not been Chance for a while.
Chance had the DNF.
It was Park, and now it's Nate.
Nate, how many points is Nate out?
I don't know, but actually, I did say to Nate after the race that this is a missed opportunity for him because he was fairly consistent through the first half. He was kind of lurking somewhat. He is 32 down now, so he's out. But
okay, I was going to make a smart-ass joke that whoever's fourth in points, I give a championship shot at this point.
No, maybe there's a disqualification and who knows what else, and he can get back in it. Tongue in cheek, of course. Hammaker, holy.
Was that the scariest first 2 laps you've ever seen of a race in your life for a single individual rider?
I'm in the press box just screaming, like, puncher? Buckled wheel? Spokes? Like, there was I did not even entertain the fact that he was just riding without issue. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. From casing the whoops, each jump in the whoops, to sliding out in every single berm, from lighting up the rear to stabbing the front to casing every single jump on the track.
It's almost being murdered by Hardy Munoz.
That one at least made some sense, I guess. But like it was a messy 3 laps, I'd say. And yeah, he said very straight up there was no issue. He just kind of had that first incident in the tables and then lost his mind a little bit. The way that he was riding, and this is rarely referenced, took me back to Tomac Salt Lake City 2013 when he just completely blew it.
He blew apart, yeah.
So to Hammaker's credit, I'm actually quite impressed that he was that down bad and managed to regroup mid-race to actually be the fastest man on track. He was half a second quicker than anyone else at points. Very hard to do that mid-race, I think. Just hit the reset button. So despite the fact he lost the red plate, the messiness, I do kind of find that I've been impressed in a new way by Hammaker.
Yeah. That's the thing. Something you could take this as he basically blew up the first 2 laps, but I am, again, clutch, being able to regroup himself and ride the way he is. Again, Seth has taken such a huge leap this year overall, and has really put it together. But yeah, those first 2 laps were not it. If he was a cat, he burned 8 of 9 lives, and the first 2 laps and the 9th live was burnt when Hardy almost landed on him. He's got nothing left for Salt Lake. We need a clean Salt Lake.
I did actually make this comment to him, and he kind of laughed it off, but maybe that helps him in Salt Lake because he's had a situation now where, like, this is crazy, this is a mess, what the fuck is happening, help me, and he came out of it. Likely to be like that in Salt Lake with the championship scenario and the deeper field, so maybe he can draw on that experience if he starts 10th and remain calm and be like, okay, this is Pittsburgh all over again, this is how I got through it, it was fine, just stay calm, you know, maybe this was actually a beneficial dry run for him.
It will, if you look at the season, like, okay, let's take the finale. Let's say somehow Tom, RJ, Seth kind of all start 5th or a little bit worse. I hate to say this, I don't have a lot of faith that Tom can battle through. based off, just his races overall this season. I kind of lean on him needing more of the start to control the race. But then I look at Seth and RJ's situation. They just seem so much more likely to go through. And Seth, having recently experienced it, definitely puts him at least in a strong situation of belief. If, again, we start Salt Lake, he's eighth. And let's say both Tom and RJ a couple spots ahead of him, like Seth should be able to gather himself and know it's not over. That, everything's to play still.
9 times out of 10, when Nate Thrasher is in that position, he executes. So I actually think the fact that he didn't win the main event, I think that casts a bit of a shadow over him a little bit. I don't know. I feel like Nate Thrasher, when he leads for that long and has a ride like that, he normally pulls it off. So I don't know. I don't feel too hot about him losing that.
I think a two-prong, we both know his hand's been terrible. He hasn't been able to pull all up. So it doesn't terribly shock me that he tightened up at the end. But also, again, clutch, I put a bit of that on Tom, knowing he absolutely had to make it work. But in the same breath, when you look at the advantage Nate had in the whoops and certain things, Nate definitely kind of blew that one a little bit to his position. Like, as good as Tom is, Tom being the defending champion and needing to make it happen, that shouldn't have happened. Like, Nate should have been able to hang on that. Even, in the broadcast booth, they had the Lawrences, and I think it was Hunter basically said that. Like, Nate has these rides. He just gets out there, gets it done, and nobody can, I don't know, he didn't say the word nobody can touch him, but that's, he was basically really referencing how good Nate is at times, and then Tom reeled him in. It didn't, and like I thought it was going to. I really, of all the performances in this field, Tom getting Nate more that Nate didn't hold on is actually the most possibly surprising thing of the night to me. Is that a little messed up to say?
No, I think so. I think it's fair because not only, as you mentioned, was Nate stronger in the whoops, he was much better than Tom in the first rhythm section, exiting the first corner. Tom had a weird line there that he was just stuck in and he was losing time. So I don't actually know or understand how Tom pulled this off because it's not like Nate started blowing it either. Somehow Tom worked his magic, which I guess if he can work a similar act come Salt Lake City, it will serve him well. Talking to Maximus Voland on press day, he said that his starts have been suffering and he thinks he knows why now because he was watching footage and his injured foot was dragging out of the gate, and because he has no feeling, he couldn't feel it or realize that it was there. And then watching footage, he was like, oh. So starting in Pittsburgh, he introduced start blocks. Not the super tall ones, smaller ones, and it paid dividends. He got a great start, ran up there, got third, his first career podium, first podium of the season for Club MX, I believe. No, Coty got one, didn't he? Second podium of the season for Club MX. I said to him, it doesn't sound like you need small starting blocks. It sounds like you need the big ones where your feet are basically already on the pegs, and then you'll be away and you'll really have no issues. And he said he tried that, but because he's so tall, being in that position so top heavy made him feel really out of balance when he was sat on the bike, which actually makes perfect sense to me. And I'm surprised that more riders don't feel that. Like you're putting your center of gravity so high up, sat there, that it would be a very unnatural feeling.
Anybody tell that to Benny, the tallest guy in the field running the tallest blocks?
It doesn't make sense to, like, it really, well, what Volan said really makes sense, and as a result, the tall riders doing that doesn't make sense to me anymore.
Yeah, because his knees, especially he's all legs, I can see his knee position being high, and it could be just even tough to lean forward, body build, different things, starting position. I don't know, like I was about to say, the first thought I had is if he's having trouble with the foot, I know we kind of debunked the whole why like the GP 1 foot thing doesn't work in the US because of the condition after the gate's very different, but then he instantly falls in a category of, okay, even if it's not tall blocks, could we just run the foot that drags on the peg and go to a 1 block scenario, learn it? I don't know.
I did see that Prado was practicing starts and still has 1 foot down, so I'm going to keep a close eye on whether he goes to 2 feet down at some point. And let it be known that I did pass this information on. So if he goes 2 feet down, it means that I was right.
You're taking full credit.
Yes. Well, we already saw, not to sidetrack us, I went to the Baker's Factory. Chase had the best ride of his career. I didn't go to the Baker's Factory. Chase lost the race.
It's completely your fault.
These are facts. This is what I do.
So who was more emotional after the race, you or him?
Me, because fuck me, I could have interviewed him and I didn't realize he was still there and I blew it. So I fumbled big, and it was a tough night for interviews. Really could have done with that one. So basically he was there ready for an interview and I didn't realise and I fucked it up and I'm an idiot. I'm having a tough go at the moment, to be honest. I'm in a funk. I'm Ferrandis. I'm in a late season funk. We don't know, but
so
anyway,
we need to get to that week break so you can hit the hard reset.
No, it's not a tiredness issue. It's not a tiredness issue. I'm just not executing. My performance hasn't been good on podcasts. My Race Day Live performance was a subpar showing after the first one.
Can we explain why on Race Day Live you look so much bigger than
I don't know. That's also in my head. I don't know. That's also in my head. I don't like that. I'm very fucking sensitive about my height now, which I've never been. I feel like a fucking I've got a new what's it called? New not phobia. New self. Fuck. What's the word? New
self doubt.
Yeah, something like that. Unlocked.
I'm waiting for the next Race Day Live when you're sitting there trying to reposition yourself for the camera to stand a foot back from them.
Honestly, I look like a giant. It's not nice. But yeah, I'm in a funk. I'm not just talking about myself. I'm trying to get somewhere with this. I'm in a funk. It's not because of tiredness. I'm not executing. I'm not doing what I need to do.
My friend.
What I need to do is I need some more power. So maybe what I'll do is I'll head to yoshimura-rd.com to hook myself up and get the same power that Honda HRC Progressive use. And maybe that would see me get out of my funk and take me to the next level. I'm almost certain that it would do that for me. And you too, if you head to yoshimura-rd.com and see all that they have to offer for your motorcycle. Actually, speaking of Honda HRC Progressive, I thought I saw a ghost at the weekend because I saw Wim van Hoof, the name will mean nothing to 99% of the people listening to this. A huge gem in the MXGP paddock. Every rider that's worked with him basically says he's the best thing since sliced bread. He was with Standing Construct for the entirety of his noteworthy career, except for in 2017 when the team stopped. He went to Suzuki and worked with the Lawrence brothers, engine guy, crew chief, did a few of those jobs throughout his time. Obviously, Standing Construct isn't running in GPs at the moment. The Lawrence is still very much remembering his great work from 2017, reached out to him, and he's now in a bit of a trial period with Honda HRC Progressive. As far as I understand, a bit of a mixture of engine guy slash MX2 slash 250 crew chief. Bit of a couple of roles there, but interesting to see on the tech side, people being dragged over from the MXGP paddock. I think that's quite interesting. So, yeah, good to see a familiar face in the Pittsburgh paddock. And, of course, we'll have Mikael Harrop outdoors, so it's basically Europe over here at this point. Cullen Park, tell me this, riddle me this. What does Cullen Park have to do to get more? Factory ride, factory-supported ride. Is this enough? Fifth in the championship now, was fourth, already has a podium, had a top 5 last week, straight up in the dry. A 7th this week on a night where he admitted he was off, but a 7th when you're off is quite actually a positive trait, I would argue. So he deserves more. I think that's quite clear. I don't think we need to debate that. But does this get him more?
No.
Okay.
I hate to say it's still that, like, okay, Cody's outperformed Colin a little bit this year. Cody's not going to get any more still. It's still...
But Club counts as more, I think, compared to Phoenix.
I don't consider it a big difference.
Well, I guess we have no way to test this, but I would be curious.
It'd still be level to me. It's still... You're saying... Because your words is factory. Like, either one of them make that jump, it still just comes down to... Even like guys, when I feel like they perform on the level that Colin is right now, when you ask teams, they're still like, people have these years. Can he do it again? Is this just, has he peaked and we're seeing the peak, or is there more? I do believe there is more in Colin, personally. I still think it's just going to take a little bit more. Yes, this is his 4th season, but he also spent the 2 before this barely raced. He was injured. Big hurt for him is outdoor results. He would be based off purely his Supercross results, so needs a dry podium. Heads up beating these guys. Needs something a little bit more. Because the 7th's impressive on an off night. Yeah, it's going to take another season. I think if he levels up one more step from this and puts it together next year, then I think the doors will open. But I don't think anything changes after the season. It definitely puts him on people's radar. Yes, he is well liked. Yes, he's very close with guys like Chase and Kenny, so he's on some people's radars based off people saying, hey, he's got potential, he can do things. But now it's being proven at the races, so he's on people's radar. They're going to watch his progress a lot more in the next 12 months and see if he can make that jump.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think he gets a better deal for next year, but that doesn't mean that I think it's right. I do think he deserves it. I just don't know. Like, I'm trying to rattle my brain of where he would potentially slot in.
Yeah.
Triumph is full.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The reason I say it's full. The thing is too is Colin is a bigger rider, stature wise. So I know he's definitely on the big end for 250. Some guys still weigh that quite a bit in decision. I do know I've talked to him and the team over David Eller. I threw it out a few weeks ago to Colin, hey, what do you think about riding 250 West next year and 450 East? And he was really about the idea. I know the team's talked about it a little bit, and it's definitely a floating idea right now. I'd like to see him on West because of his size a little bit, just because of the difference, a little bit more hard pack races, but also getting that opportunity to ride a 450 East because I don't know quite where I want to see how he does on a 450. I'm curious where the career path could be for him. But I still, to round about at the beginning, I think he's on people's radars now. So if he continues to perform through next year, then I think the door is finally open.
Final thoughts? Cool.
We've kind of had this, one more. We've kind of had this conversation a little bit. I know it was a rough night, but we're still, the Faulkner thing's still moving in a positive direction, right?
Yeah, as I've said all along,
the heat race was third best heat race.
Yep.
I mean, we're still moving the right way.
There is a part of me, even when it was going bad, there was a part of me that, and I said it on this podcast, that thinks that we all should just lay off him and be like, if you make it through the season, that's an achievement. Now, touch wood, he's going to make it through the season, and there is noteworthy progress, which means that I don't think that any of us can really criticize him too much, because clearly there is light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas if he had just stayed as an 11th place guy, then I think there was room for criticism. But clearly, if there was around 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 of Supercross, I think you would expect this trajectory to continue. So it's not his fault that he's running out of time. So yeah, I although of course I expect more from Faulkner, we know how great he is, we know how great he could be, I am very much not going to throw stones on this occasion or in any occasion in the future. Like I said before, I expect outdoors to be really, really, really rough for the first half of the season, and I won't throw stones then either. Just, we're good.
Let me throw out one more small one for you. It's circling back to an earlier conversation. RJ, do we see him after Salt Lake, or do we see another wrist surgery?
I think we see another wrist surgery.
Dang, so 450 RJ will have to wait a little bit longer.
Yep, make 2026 even more exciting. And speaking of the Rockstar Energy Husqvarna factory racing team, Malcolm Stewart's documentary is now live on ESPN+. So support that, support the sport. It'll be interesting to see what that is. It's been put together by a non-moto production company. So a different take, a different vibe. Yeah, let's all tune in together. Take a trip into the world of cinema and see what it has to offer. Because this podcast has no more to offer. It's over for another week. Thank you to Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura, Fox Racing, and Motorex for their support of the Vital MX post-race show. Thank you to Michael Lindsay for joining me. Thank you to everyone for listening and watching. We will see you in 7 days' time to discuss the penultimate round of 2025 Monster Energy AMA Supercross from Denver. See you then.